Today in the Dietary Restriction Kitchen, we're going to make beef and barley soup, except it's not going to have any barley in it because barley has gluten and I have to be gluten-free. And if you're like me, you can't eat beef and barley soup because the barley has gluten. So instead of barley, we're going to use buckwheat. So this is beef and buckwheat soup. So it's going to be delicious. I hope you stick around and let's get to it right now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is going to heat up our olive oil in our Dutch oven pan. I didn't go through the ingredients like I normally do, but you can find the list of ingredients on the DRK website. There's a link to the recipe right in the description for this video. And then we're going to add our cut up stew beef, okay, to the pan. I'm going to turn that down slightly. I'm going to need something to stir when it's on. So I'll just go over this way. Okay, good. Don't stick to the pan, please, guys. I find one thing's good if it's starting to stick, if you got little sticky bits or that it happens, add a little bit more olive oil. Okay. So normally you brown beef a little bit at a time. In this case we're just going to do it all at once. Get that brown. Now, I'm going to get that fairly browned. We're also, while we're waiting for that, so I'm going to turn it off because I want to just get this zipping really good here. But it's supposed to be medium-high heat, so about 6 if you've got them numbered. Okay, so get that going. So you can see that they're starting to get brown, but we want a little bit browner than that. And the next thing we're going to need to have is some chopped up onion. So some chopped up onion and some minced garlic. So we're going to be using that next. But like I say, full recipes on the DRK, that's Dietary Restriction Kitchen website. The link to the recipe page will be in the description for this video. So, alright, so that looks pretty good there. And you can see that it's kind of starting to give up its moisture a little bit at the bottom there as well. So then we're going to add our onions to that. Okay, chopped up onion. Get that going on. We're going to soften that up. So we're going to give that a few minutes. We're going to add our garlic in the meantime as well. Put that garlic in there. So the minced garlic. Okay. Alright, so we're going to let that go. I'm going to do it off camera and then come back. We're going to let that cook a little bit. I'm going to turn it down a little. And we'll come back and do the next part. Okay, so now we've had the onions softening pretty good in there. So now we're going to add our seasonings. There's some herb de Provence, and I put some sea salt and a bit of black pepper. I'm going to just throw that in there. Now, if you don't have herb de Provence, it's like a spice blend, right? If you don't have that, you can use, well, some are savory and some thyme and that sort of, like, so really, you can use what you got. If you don't want to buy like the other spice blend, then you can use other things. And then we're going to add our either potato or sweet potato. In my case today, I'm using rutabaga. I'm going to throw them right in the pan here. And I'm just going to mix it up. Because you know me, I love to get in there and mix things. Okay, so there. And then next we're going to add our, I forgot to add this. So a little bit of tomato paste, about like a heaping tablespoon of that. So a tablespoon and a half really is on the recipe for a tablespoon and a half. So we have that. We're going to add that in there. The nice thing about soup, if you go, oh, I forgot to put that in, not a problem. You just add it when you remember. Okay, so then we've got 5 cups of beef broth. So I'm just going to pour that in there. Ooh. I spilled somewhere, didn't I? Okay, so there we go. And what we're going to do, we've got to get that guy going to the boil. And then turn him down and cover it And then we're going to simmer that covered for about until they whatever you're using for the starch in there. So for me, it's the rutabaga, or if you have potato, if you can eat potato, or because I can't, or sweet potato, whatever you want them to be, just fork tender. And then we'll get to the next part. But we need to do that, get that to a boil, turn it down, put a cover on, and then maybe gap the cover a little bit, and then let that get fork tender. So we're going to do that next, and then we'll come back and we'll get the next part done. Okay, so I've checked on my rutabaga in there, and it's becoming like fork tender, just enough. Like if I needed to eat that now, I could eat it without it being too hard, but it's still got some give to it. So now I'm going to put in our buckwheat. These are whole buckwheat, and that's going to mimic the barley that you would normally have in beef and barley soup. So we're going to throw that in and mix that in there. Okay, and then we're going to, I got frozen peas and carrots. You could use fresh carrots that you chop up. I would put them in kind of earlier. You can use fresh peas. You can use green beans, whatever you want. We're going to use some frozen peas and carrots. And the reason why is because that was what I used to put into my beef and barley soup. I used to just do very basic and do beef and barley. In fact, I didn't even have any potato or anything in it, even when I used to have, be able to eat potatoes. So this, the adding of that, of the starchy vegetable is something new that I hadn't done before. So I'm doing a little bit different. So then we're going to cover that back up again and let that simmer again, probably checking it about 10 minutes or so, because the buckwheat takes about 10 to 15 minutes to cook, and so we'll check it in about 10 and see where we're at that point. All right, so I've had it going for about probably about 12 minutes. So I'm looking at it there, and you can see the buckwheat right in there. Looks kind of like barley, right? And so I'm just going to try to take a flick out of there and try to taste it. Getting tender, starting to get tender, so we're just about right. I'm going to just now put that back in, but I'm going to take a little bit of the broth and give it a taste. It doesn't need a thing. I don't think it does. It doesn't even need more salt, but at this point, if you want to add salt, I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more pepper, I think, to that. But yeah, you can also add a little bit of extra. Some are savory. I'm just going to add a little tiny bit here and get the thing open. And just sprinkle some of that in there. And I'm just going to give that a little whip around here. But yeah, it looks great. The rutabaga is tender. The, I was going to say barley again. The buckwheat is tender. And so we're going to give that a shot and see how we did. All right, so let's give this soup a try. Got my bowl here, and got the barley. Well, barley. It's buckwheat, and let's give it a shot. You know what? You can't tell that isn't barley. I mean, I mean, it really mimics that, It's ever so slightly different because it's got that give, but it doesn't have that quite the same chew, but almost the same as barley, as I remember it, because I used to, I'm going to snag a, oh yeah, rutabaga, and that's really good. I would really encourage you to try that rather than potato or sweet potato, but that's a possibility. Some peas and carrots, some beef. It's going to make a good meal with some gluten-free bread, if you have to be gluten-free. And, well, obviously, here we are making gluten-free soup. Anyway, whatever your dietary restrictions are, keep those in mind. But, yeah, this is a great soup. It's a favorite of mine, favorite of my family, with the beef and barley. Now, I can make beef and barley soup, like sort of barley-free beef and barley soup. And yeah, and everybody still enjoy it. Oh yeah, that's good. So, thanks for stopping by today and joining me here at the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. Really hope you give it a try. See you next time, guys. Happy cooking.